محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك سيدي أيها البشير النذير والسراج المنير. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وعلى ابنك المظلوم العطشان الظمآن العريان حسين سيدي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك منا سلام الله أبدا ما بقينا، وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد منا لزيادة. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخيه أبي الفضل العباس والعقيلة زينب. سيدي يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا من خزائن علومك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Oh Allah, teach us what benefits us and benefit us from what you've taught us, and increase in our knowledge and in our wisdom and in our faith. My dear brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'd like to remember a section, a portion of our community who deserve our utmost respect, who deserve our utmost appreciation. The ones that are the foundation of this community, and that's our elders, our uncles, the ones who established this community, our fathers and our aunties, who are the backbone, who spent their blood and their tears and their wealth and their time to establish what we have today, so we can do the ihya of the majalis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. For them, with gratitude and with appreciation, let's remember them and honor them with alat salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The idea of the inner kingdom is not an analogy that just sounds fun. The reason why we compose this analogy or this framework, not only is it a journey within you, but it allows you to understand yourself in a holistic manner. And tonight, in the past couple of nights we've been speaking about the different dimensions. We spoke about the palace, about the body. We spoke about our emotions as the guardians of this inner kingdom. We spoke about the heart as the throne within this kingdom. Tonight we are going to be speaking about the mind. And the mind is the central authority within this inner kingdom. It's the prime minister of this inner kingdom. And the Prime Minister's role is to advise the king, to be the advisor of the soul. So the role of the mind is crucial. But the topic of the mind is complex. The topic of the mind and the brain is not a simple topic, because we can literally create series upon series, lectures upon lectures, delving into this fantastic and amazing and complicated and mysterious tool that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted us with. So inshallah, for this we are going to humbly attempt to add as much value as possible over the next 2 nights on this topic, on the topic of the Prime Minister. Tonight, inshallah, in the first part, I want to try and bring together what we've been speaking about in the past couple of nights. I want to bring together, because the mind's objective and goal is to make sure that this inner kingdom runs in a healthy manner. So naturally, there's a big interconnection between the mind and every authority within this kingdom. So the objective of tonight's talk isn't to delve too deep into the mind. Inshallah, we'll talk about that tomorrow night. Today, it's more about relating the mind to all the different components within us. So we're going to do this, inshallah, in 6 different objectives. The first objective is we want to understand the mind as the Prime Minister. What does it mean? The second objective is to see what the interaction is between the mind and the heart, the throne. Then the third objective is we want to look at the tool of the mind, or the tools of the mind, which is logic and reason. Then we want to talk about the mind's role in aligning the inner guardians, or our emotions, and the control that the mind has over our emotions. We want to talk about, in objective 5, the mind's influence over the body. And then inshallah, the mind's relationship with the king, the soul. Tomorrow we'll delve deeper inshallah. But if you allow me, please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This entity within us, this mind within us, it's crucial and is vital to the inner kingdom. I want you to imagine your mind. Remember how in the first night I told you I'm going to be using a lot of analogies, a lot of examples, just so we can get the point across. Tomorrow you're going to understand why I use analogies. Because you're going to learn that the mind and the conscious and the subconscious mind learns through stories. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses stories in the Holy Quran. He doesn't just tell you, He shows you through Yusuf alayhi salam. He shows you through Ibrahim. Stories allow us. So analogies are a form of a story. Imagine your mind as a CEO of a startup company. Now, this example is just for now. I'm going to change this example towards the end of the lecture. But imagine your mind as a CEO of a startup company. And just one quick pointer. When I give an example or an analogy, the reason why I give this analogy or any form of example is to get a point across. Once the point has reached, then I've reached my objective of giving the analogy. I don't want you to dwell too much on the analogy. It's not the analogy that's the goal. It's the point that I'm getting across. So imagine the CEO as the mind is a CEO of a startup company. All right, mashallah, we have a lot of businessmen and here, so you understand what I'm saying. And it's responsible of shaping the company's vision. It's responsible for making executive decisions, of guiding the team. Our mind's role in this sense is similarly in charge of shaping our worldview. It's in charge of making definite actions, choosing what we do. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the 2 faculties within the mind and which faculty chooses and which faculty doesn't. But just take this from me now. The conscious mind is the mind that chooses to decide. When you want to go to your friend's house, when you want to go and turn on the car and go out with your friends, when you want to go eat something at a restaurant, when you pick up a book to read, when you go to school, when you go to work, when you apply for a job, everything, it's your mind that is making you make this decision or helping you make this decision. But it also guides our emotions. Or it should be the one guiding our emotions. Okay? It has the power to guide our emotions. But the mind isn't confined to dealing with the rational and concrete world alone. Because right now, if I were to put a wall and I were to shine a light on this wall, the light doesn't penetrate the wall, correct? It only hits the wall and it reflects off this wall. But if I get an X-ray, what does the X-ray do? The X-ray penetrates the wall and it tells you what's behind the wall. The mind allows you to see what's in front of you physically, but it also allows you to see what's beyond what's in front of you. And that's how we're able to make decisions, and that's how we're able to learn. That's how we are able to learn from each other's experiences. That's how we are able to read the Quran and derive principles, because the mind allows you to see what's beyond. So it doesn't just, the mind serves as a bridge between the physical, the tangible world and the abstract world. So when you're learning in philosophy, for example, about a deep concept, what's happening is your mind is rationalizing a deep concept. If I tell you right now, I cannot be sitting on this mimbar and outside at the exact same time. You don't need me to show you that that's impossible. Your mind tells you, yeah, it's impossible. He can't be in two places at once. Your mind makes that conclusion. Now, in the palace of the inner kingdom, we said that the mind advises the soul and it takes action. But it also interacts with the rest of the kingdom. It interacts with the palace, it interacts with your emotions, and it interacts with your heart. Tonight, inshallah, as we said, we are going to delve deep into some of the tools of the mind, like the tool of logic, the tool of intuition, the tool of creativity, the tool of memory, the tool of imagination. All of these are different tools and faculties of the mind. Okay? Tomorrow we'll touch upon this a bit more in depth. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Before we get into the second objective, I just want to mention one thing also. That understanding our mind isn't just something that you read in a book. There are many books I can now tell you about that you can read and learn about the functionality of the mind. For example, a beautiful book, a powerful book that I suggest is Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a powerful book that talks about the two systems within the human being. The two systems of the mind within you that impact every decision that you make and the decisions that you don't make, consciously or unconsciously. But it's not just an intellectual journey. So you can read all the books of the mind, but it's more a journey of self-discovery, of learning about yourself, learning about what you're capable of, learning from your experiences, learning what you're actually capable. Who's ever been in a situation where you're doing something? Let's say, a nice example is Ziyarat al-Arba'in. When you're walking from Najaf to Karbala, it is extremely, I'm talking face value, it looks so hard. If I told you right now, let's go and walk 100 kilometers, you would laugh at me. Like, what do you mean I walk 100 kilometers? I get tired walking from here to the car. You want to walk 100 kilometers? But when you walk from Najaf to Karbala, you walk with a smile on your face. Because your mind, with the ultimate control, allows you to look at this situation, look at this experience, and reframe the experience. Reframe the meaning of the walk. So everything within you is in harmony. Everything becomes easy. I don't know if you guys have heard of a man by the name of David Goggins. David Goggins is really well known for throwing himself at extremely tough situations. He says, because I am not in a battle with anyone. I'm at a battle with myself. I put myself in tough situations to test my mind, to test myself. He says, I love running. Because running is not me versus you, it's me versus me. When I stop, it's because I've given up. And if I continue, it's because I've challenged myself. So the mind plays a crucial role. He says, and mind you, true story, he ran a marathon for almost, if I remember correctly, I think it was like 200 kilometers or something like that, with 2 broken legs. So halfway through the marathon, he actually broke both of his legs, but he kept running. He kept running. The mind is powerful. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, if he did not have, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If Abu Abdullah didn't have a resilient mind, a sharp mind, a powerful mind. Remember what we said a couple of nights ago. 14 stops from the road from Medina to Karbala. On every stop, people were telling him, what are you doing? Go back. What are you doing? Don't do this to yourself. Imam said, no, I will continue. He wasn't being stubborn. It wasn't out of stubbornness, wa'ayadu billah. But he knew. He had the power. He had the internal power. He knew what was happening. He foresaw, like the x-ray that went through the wall. He knew what was happening around him. He had foresight. He had wisdom through the mind. So, what is the interaction between the mind and the heart? Really quickly, the heart and the mind work like a dynamic duo. And I want you, once again, another analogy. I want you to picture them as co-founders of a successful business. One is the visionary of this business, who dreams big, who feels the passion, comes up with the ideas. This is the heart. And then the other partner is the one that strategizes, that makes the plan, that makes the action. He transforms this vision into concrete action. Your heart desires something. Your mind makes it happen. I think it was Mike Tyson, or I think Muhammad Ali, that says something really similar. He says, if I can contemplate something or think about something or envision something, and my heart believes in it, then I know that I can achieve it. So I will do it. I will basically, and now I don't want to put words in his mouth, so let's finish. That's what he said. He's basically saying, I will make sure this inner kingdom runs by the function of the Prime Minister. It's going to be tough, it's going to be hard, there's going to be adversity along the way, but I will make it happen. So, the heart is where all our raw emotions and our passions reside. It's like an artist that's painting a picture of love, a vivid picture of love or fear and joy, but without the mind's interpretation of love and vision and joy, and the guidance of the mind to the body, these emotions won't make their way onto the paper, onto the canvas. Your heart feels, your mind creates. And also, more importantly, the heart is where your beliefs are stored. I want you to think about something. When you believe in something, whether it's a global belief, whether it's a religious belief, whether it's a limiting belief, whether it's an empowering belief, whether it's a belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the belief in the wisdom of God, whether it's belief that I have to pray, it's wajib to pray, whether I believe that a man should treat a woman in this way. When you believe in something, the reason you believe in it is because it traveled through the passage of the mind. The mind took this information, it learned, it used its tools, and it said, yes, okay, I believe in God, God is the most wise, and God is the most knowledgeable, God is the creator, He created me, I'm indebted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I also believe, according to what I've learned, God told me to pray, God told me to fast, and I believe in this, and because I believe in this, I will act upon it. The problem is when you have belief that does not stem from the mind. You know what happens when you have belief that does not stem from the mind? You have Muslims killing Muslims. The ones on Laylat Ashura, the night of the 10th of Muharram, there was one camp that was coming to kill the grandson of Rasulullah, and they were reading Quran, and they were praying, and there was one camp preparing themselves for Shahada and martyrdom, and they were reading Quran, and they were praying. And they both believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one stemmed from truth, which stemmed from the mind, and then entered the heart and penetrated the heart, and one came out of reaction, out of reactivity. A lot of people that came into Islam in the early Islam, in the beginning stages, in the foundations of Islam, with the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, they were called munafiqeen, hypocrites. Why? Because Islam did not go past their tongue. It did not go past their throat. It was just something that they were saying. It didn't go through the process of the mind and enter the heart. And it was only because the Holy Prophet is a powerful, influential figure. And we want power and influence. So we are going to align ourselves with the person that has power and influence. It's not because of Islam. So Rasulullah says, they're hypocrites. It must go and enter the heart. So that is the relationship between the heart and the mind. They work hand in hand. When you have a powerful mind, it allows powerful beliefs to enter the heart. Then the heart reprograms itself to believe in this, and then it impacts the mind. Perfect example, right? When you believe, this is a powerful example. When you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so your mind brings you to the rational belief that God exists, God is the most wise, God is the most knowledgeable, God is the most merciful, God is the creator, for example. Let's use these qualities, these attributes. And how do you believe this? You use your logical belief. I am not saying your parents told you and you believed. If your parents told you and you believed and you didn't truly internalize it, then at any adversity, you're going to come and say, why God? Why did you do this to me? You didn't actually internalize it. And that's the power of intellect and knowledge. That's why the Holy Prophet persists on knowledge and attaining knowledge. Persists on every single human being to seek knowledge. Because if you believe without knowledge, without truth, without proof, then your knowledge is not strong. The foundations are weak. So if I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all of these attributes, then I believe that God would never do something without a rightful cause. Correct? I believe that Allah is the most wise. The wise is the one who does the right thing in the rightful place, or puts the right thing in the rightful place. Right? A doctor must be wise, because if I come to him with a hand injury and he gives me medicine for my foot, it's unwise. He must give me medication for the problem that I have. When I believe God is infinite in wisdom, then I know God will never ever do anything that is imperfect. Okay, so now we believe this. Awesome. This belief enters the heart. Now you pose another question. Why are there natural disasters? Why did God create people with disabilities? That means God's unjust. That means God's unwise. That means God's not merciful. See, when people try and solve this issue by answering this question, it's problematic. But you as a believer in the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't even need the answer to this question. Because the premise is Allah would never do anything without reason and cause. So even though I might not understand why there's natural disasters, even though I might not understand why people are born with disability, I might not understand 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, it doesn't mean there's no answer to it. I just don't understand it. I don't comprehend it. If I want to understand it, I must seek knowledge. When I seek knowledge, I'll understand it. And that's the power and this dynamic duality between the heart and the mind. They work hand in hand. Strong mind, a healthy mind, allows you to have a healthy heart. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, let's continue on this journey. Let's discover the tools of the Prime Minister. The mind, like I said, we're going to touch more on this tomorrow, inshallah, but it's crucial to mention this tonight. The mind uses some tools to navigate through the realm of existence. It needs a few tools to ensure that it's working in the right way. The two key tools are logic and reason. Logic and reason. Think of logic and reason as the mind's compass and map. As a traveler, you use a compass to find the correct direction and a map to plan the route to get to this direction. Our mind uses logic and reason to make sense of our experiences and guide our actions. So logic, in essence, is a systematic way of thinking that allows us to deduce conclusions from certain facts or premises. Someone tells you 1, 2, 3, and 4. Your logic comes and it lines up these different things that they've told you and it says, yep, this makes sense, or it doesn't make sense. Logic is the ability to think about everything someone tells you and try and make conclusions about it. And that's how we learn as kids. As children, we grow up because this mind, this faculty of logic is powerful. Now, the faculties of creativity is more powerful as a child. But logic tells you, like as a child, if I tell my son, for example, the ball, if I'm holding the ball right now, if I'm holding a ball, and my son says, "Where's the ball?" and he can see the ball, I say, "The ball's over there." He's gonna be like, "But I can see it, it's in your hand." I say, "Yeah, it's here and there." He's like, "No, Baba, it can't be here and there." Without being able to prove why, he's gonna say, "It can't be here and there, it's either here or there, Baba." He doesn't need logical rationalization and proof. The tool's there. The tool of the mind is there. It's like a detective. Logic is like a detective piecing clues together at a crime scene. He looks at this clue, he looks at this clue, he looks at this clue to try to understand what happened. Reason, on the other hand, is the ability to bring all of this information and make judgments based on the analysis. So, if logic is the detective, reason is the judge. Reason takes all of these different arguments and says, yep or no. According to the clues that I have, this doesn't make sense. According to the clues that I have, it doesn't make sense. It makes the final ruling. Let's look at the Holy Quran. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, He instructs us, He says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنِ. We can go to the Holy Quran right now and read it. And we can read a juz'. Now, I'm going to say something that might sound controversial, but I'm entitled to my opinion, and I'm going to say my opinion. In Shahr Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan, we get together every day, right? You get together, and there's a common practice where we read one juz' of Quran every single day. Yeah, which is an amazing practice. It's an empowering practice. It's a beautiful practice, because you are trying to complete the Holy Quran in the holy month of Ramadan. But when you read the whole Quran and have understood nothing from it, what have you gained? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنِ. Do they not reflect upon the Quran? Or are there locks upon their hearts? When you do not reflect upon the Quran, either you are making a conscious decision not to reflect, or your heart is in a state that it doesn't want you to reflect. So when coming to the Holy Quran, I've mentioned this on a number of occasions, it's a book of divine principles. A book of timeless principles that can be attributed and applied in every time, in every environment, in every society, in every culture. This Holy Quran, you must contemplate it, not just read it. You know how many times where I'd be going through a tough time, like certain experiences around me, and I'd need answers, but I just can't find the answers that I need. So what I do is I pick up the Holy Quran and I begin reading. And I say, Ya Allah, before I begin reading, Ya Allah, I know that you are here. I know you are everywhere, and I know that you hear me. And I know that you're watching me. You know the trials. I want you to speak to me. So right now I'm going to read this Holy Quran. And I'm going to continue reading. I pose a question, right? At the beginning. I say, I'm going to continue reading until I feel that you've answered my question through your verses. There's a big difference between me reading because I want to finish a juz' and me reading because I'm searching for an answer. When you're reading and you're searching for an answer, the amount of attention that you pay to every word, to every letter, to every verse enhances. Because your mind is now completely tuned in. So, the Holy Prophet also says, and this is a powerful hadith, one of the most powerful hadiths. He says, the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أول ما خلقه الله, was intellect. When it comes to the human creation, we're saying. When it comes to human creation, in our existence, the first thing that was created was our intellect. And he says, it's through intellect that I will be worshipped. It's through intellect that I will be found. Look at the power of intellect. And intellect is a tool of the mind. So understanding and utilizing our logic and our reason allows us to interpret our experiences in a more accurate way. But we have to be careful, because we have to understand that our intellect, our rationality, our logic, and our reason are not infallible. If it was infallible, then everyone would have the same beliefs. Because you can have right now 5 extremely intellectual people right now, and they all differ. Our reason and our intellect are not infallible. They must be utilized in a way, and they must be utilized alongside many other things. And they must be balanced with other faculties of the mind, which inshallah we'll talk about tomorrow if God permits. But 1 or 2 of them are very powerful elements or very powerful faculties that have to be aligned with them are the faculties of intuition and emotion. At the end of the day, we're human beings. We're social and empathetic beings. We're human beings that have emotions. If I'm going to constantly look at someone and say rationality, logic, 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, and judge everyone by a single standard, it's going to be problematic. I need to make sure that I utilize this tool and take into consideration other elements and paradigms of my existence. So this is where the mind's role comes in aligning the internal guardians, our emotions. So the Prime Minister in this aspect plays the role of managing our guardians. Remember, we said it's not bad or negative to have emotions. The problem is when the emotions overpower the inner kingdom. You become emotional and reactive. You no longer think about consequences. You become like that light that hits the wall and comes back. You no longer be like the X-ray that penetrates the wall and foresees what's happening. You're in the moment and you're sucked into the moment. So the relationship between our mind and our emotions is like a coach and a team. Okay? The mind is the coach and it guides and supports the team. It directs the team. The team is our emotions. The mind is the Prime Minister. The emotions are our guardians. The goal is that the emotions must abide by the law of the Prime Minister. I'm feeling angry right now. Instead of reacting and using my body, using the palace, using everything, using this kingdom in reaction to anger, I must stop and say, what does the Prime Minister say about my anger? Is my anger in the rightful place? Is this how I should express my anger? Is there a better way to express my anger? Is there something else that I could do? It's not that anger's bad. It's that if I allow anger to take control, God knows what's going to happen. The guardians don't have the foresight of the Prime Minister. So they must consult the Prime Minister. So, like the coach that guides, imagine you have a team and each person wants to play the way they want. What's going to happen to this team? They're never going to win championships. They're not going to win matches because everyone wants to do whatever they want. But if they work in a unified form, according to what the coach wants, they might achieve success. So, the goal is the mind allows us to interpret and understand and react to our feelings in an appropriate manner. When our emotions and our intellect or our mind is aligned, the inner kingdom operates in a more harmonious way. I think I said that right. Harmonious way. It allows us to respond to life's ups and downs in a more resilient manner. Like David Goggins, who was running 100 Ks and he's broken his legs, for example. He says, they ask him, did you feel like quitting? He says, of course I felt like quitting. Every second I felt like quitting. Every second I'm like, why the heck am I doing this? Why am I still running this marathon? Why don't I just go home and relax? His emotions are telling him, relax. His emotions are telling him there's extreme pain here. Remember, they're guardians, pain and comfort. There's a lot of pain here. What are you doing? And he says, no, I am the Prime Minister. I'm going to use the Prime Minister to take control. The Holy Quran, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The Holy Quran says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah 13, verse 28. Those who have believed and whose hearts are assured by the remembrance of Allah. Ala bi-dhikrillah tatma'innul qulub. Unbelievably, or unquestionably, by the remembrance of Allah are the hearts reassured and are at peace and at ease. The heart this verse speaks about the power of the heart and the tranquility of the heart, but by having a mindful approach to the heart. Because when you experience a very tough emotional state and you give in to the emotional state and you don't allow yourself to use your mind, your prime minister, to overcome this emotional state, your heart is no longer at ease. Because you're not going to find the inner ability to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What you're going to be doing is focusing on the emotional state. You're angry, you're depressed, you're resentful, and you're thinking and you're consumed by your anger, you're consumed by your resentment. In this state, your heart cannot find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's not in a healthy state to look for God. It's too focused on the state itself. So this is where the mind's role comes and says, hold on a second. You need ease. Remember God. Put that emotional state aside for a moment. Let's go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's only through God that you can find ease. And what's God? Who's God? Truth, love, beauty, wisdom, mercy, kindness. By the way, just as a disclaimer and just in between brackets, when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise, He's the most merciful, He's the loving and He's the kind and He's, we aren't saying that God is wise by Himself and He's just by Himself and He's kind by Himself and He's merciful. No, that's not Tawheed. Tawheed, monotheism, is Allah's mercy is wisdom and His justice is love and His kindness is for Allah. That's called Tawheed al-Sifat. That when we try and understand God, we look at the different names because we're limited. But God isn't merciful sometimes, and sometimes He's kind, and sometimes He's just, and sometimes He's loving, and sometimes He is all of this at once. Through His wisdom, He's knowledgeable. And through knowledge, He is the creator. And through creation, He is merciful. And we must understand this, that when we approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can't do tajzi', where we cut up God into different pieces. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala. So what is the mind's influence on the palace, on the body? We've made this a bit, we spoke about this in the second night, we discussed this part. But the connection between the Prime Minister and the palace is it's the Prime Minister's role to take care of this palace, on one hand. But the Prime Minister also understands that if the palace is weak, the whole kingdom is weak. If he doesn't pay attention to the palace and to the body, then it's highly going to impact the office, where he sits. The factory of thought, which is the mind, is going to be impacted because he has a weak kingdom. So imagine the mind and the body, once again another analogy, like they work together, they dance together. The mind and the body, they do this dance together. Where your thoughts, your emotions impact your body and the way you utilize your body, and the way you utilize your body impacts your thoughts and your emotions. Research, for example, in the field of psychology and in neuroscience has validated this interplay. This isn't just me speaking. They say, for example, stress. Most of us, if not all of us, inshallah the younger guys haven't experienced this, but they will if they haven't, and maybe they have already. Stress originates where? In the mind. It starts in the mind. There's many thoughts happening. You're having thought upon thought upon thought upon thought. Now I can think right now as we're speaking, I've spoken so much. I've taken your mind to different places. You've thought about many different things. Your mind can jump from place to place. But when your mind is expressing, or when this thought is being expressed in your body, it needs time. It needs time for the emotion to be expressed. You can't feel happy, sad, confident, joyful, all in a moment. But you can think about chocolate, van, car, lollies in a moment. So stress is happening when there's so much happening in your mind and your body can't catch up. So for example, they say that stress originates in the mind, but what it does is it causes a physical reaction, physical symptoms. When you're stressed, you feel headaches, your body might change color, your heart might race, you have butterflies in your stomach, right? You feel uncomfortable, you're not feeling at ease. But on the flip side, if you exercise and you utilize your body, you can get rid of symptoms like stress, like depression and anxiety. So the same way depression impacts the body impacts depression. The same way stress impacts the body impacts the stress. So now when you're stressed, you have a decision. Am I going to give into this stress? Or am I going to say, okay, I'm stressed. I'm doing tough. Let me use my body to reprogram my mind and say, okay, let me go over this stress. It's a simple decision. It's hard to get up and go for a walk. But if you do go for a walk, you will feel better. You just have to make that initial decision. The brothers that go to the gym will 100% agree with me. To get to the gym can sometimes be a struggle. But when you're at the gym, it becomes easy. When you're there, you're there. It just takes that moment of getting from that zone of discomfort to the zone of comfort. So utilizing your mind to move your body, to overcome the illness of the mind, to then get better and work with your body. Are you guys getting now how the inner kingdom is all interrelated? How it all works together? And the beautiful way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts this, He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah 95, verse number 4. He says, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. And we have certainly created man in the best of structure. In the best structure. The thumb and the hand is like this for a reason. Imagine it was in another way. The way your body is in the perfect structure. And this is how we understand the holistic nature between our mental and our physical world. Mental health is a very big thing. So is physical health. Mental health is highly impacted by physical health. And physical health is highly impacted by mental health. They play together. And they are part of the same structure and stature. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'm going to mention a hadith right now by Imam Ali alayhi salam. In my opinion, is one of the most powerful narrations when it comes to understanding the value of the human being. And I'm sure most of us have heard this. He says, your remedy is within you, but you do not sense it. Your sickness is from you, but you do not perceive it. You presume you are a small entity, but within you is enfolded the entire universe. This is the key to understanding man arifa nafsah arifa rabbah. He who knows himself knows thy Lord. It's because if you understand the functionality of this inner kingdom and how to operate this inner kingdom, you understand that you are able to overcome any sickness. It's not to demean the sickness. It's not to demean the problem. It's not to take value away from depression and anxiety and. It's to empower you. It's to show you must know your value as a human being. For millennia, billions of years, species and organisms lived on this earth and lived in the world of existence. But it's only when man came onto this earth that we were able to create and build and do things that no other animal, no other creation did. Because of that inner power that we have within us. By understanding the harmony in between this inner kingdom, you are able to understand how to operate as a human being at the highest level. By not giving in to one of these paradigms within you. By not giving in to looking good, or to feeling good, or to speaking good, or to thinking good. But utilizing this whole inner mechanism to be good. To be a reflection of God. To be a reflection of the divine attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the reason why, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, the reason why we are all in love with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, the reason why we are all in love with Karbala, the reason why we are in love with the beauty of Karbala, Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam, how do you perceive what Allah has done to your brothers and to... She says, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I saw nothing but beauty. But it's massacre, it's blood, it's death. It's arrows and it's decapitated bodies, it's hands chopped off the body. I saw nothing but beauty because the divine attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were all displayed in Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam. And our own goal in life is to be a portrayal of this, to display this. Now I'm going to conclude really quickly by discussing the mind's relationship with the king. Remember I gave you an example before about the CEO. I told you I'm going to flip it in a moment. I want you to think of the soul and the mind as the CEO and a COO of a company. The king, the soul is the CEO, the top, and the mind is the CEO. The soul, or the king, he provides the broader vision, the mission, the purpose of the company. He puts the framework for the company. And the mind is what creates the strategic plans, that oversees the daily operations, to realize, to make sure that this vision actually comes to life. Each one has a unique role, but they have to work together, because the soul, in providing the vision, provides the platform for the mind to embody this vision. So, in our inner kingdom, the soul provides the spiritual essence and the deeper sense of purpose and direction, whereas the mind helps interpret and implement that vision. And that's why people, or someone that doesn't have a purpose or doesn't know their purpose in life, doesn't know why God has put them on this earth, you find they're just making things up along the way. Their mind is scattered. Their heart is scattered. Their emotions are all over the place. One day they're happy, one day they're sad. One day they're emotional, one day they're reactive. One day they might be going to the gym, one day they're not. One day they start this and they start that and they stop this and they stop that. Because their soul isn't taking charge. The Holy Quran beautifully talks about this relationship. And they ask you about the soul. And وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. Say, the soul is of the affairs of my Lord. You know, when someone asks you a question, especially when it comes to Islam, you want to try and give an answer, right? You want to give a nice answer so they can convince about what you're saying. When the Prophet is asked about the soul, what is the essence of the soul? What is the soul? This is the verse that comes down. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. They say, the soul is of the affairs of my Lord, and mankind has not been given knowledge except for a little. That the essence and the reality of the soul, inshallah, we're going to be talking about this more in 2 nights when we talk about the king, is not something materialistic and physical. It's something that's not limited by this world. It's a secret that's been bestowed from you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. And I blew unto him from my soul. So this verse reflects the mystery and the depth of the soul, and how the knowledge, our knowledge, which is driven by the mind, is just a fraction of the reality of spirituality and the grand spiritual reality. And this is where it's crucial to remember the hadith that he who knows thyself knows thy Lord. Because if you truly are able to understand yourself, your soul, which is almost impossible, which is a journey of constant self-discovery, he who can come and say today, I know who I am exactly, I know exactly what I am, I know my reality, it's not true. Because you might tell me that now, but in 10 years' time, you learn more about yourself and be like, oh, you know what? No, I didn't know my reality. Your soul is something that's magnificently divine. A gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's not from this world. And so, your journey in life is to constantly try and unravel this potential within you. And unravel what you have within you. Inshallah, as we continue to strive for this development of our inner kingdoms, of our personal development, our spiritual development, our character development, it's crucial to understand that our mind and our soul operate in harmony, and they have to operate in harmony. The mind must work in service of the soul, and not vice versa. The mind must work. So, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells me to pray, the reason why He tells me to pray isn't so I can get thawab only in the hereafter. Inshallah, you get thawab. Isn't just so I can attain the highest ranks in Jannah. Inshallah, you get the ranks. It's because your soul needs this. Your soul needs prayer. Your soul needs sawm, fasting. Your soul needs and needs and needs. And you don't know what it needs. Because the soul is from God. He knows it's a affair from God. You don't know how to make up what it needs. God knows. So that's why you adhere to Islam. That's why you adhere to the rulings of Islam. That's why you adhere to the ahkam of Islam. Because it's through these ahkam and through these rulings that you're able to attain the spiritual quenching of the soul. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As we've journeyed through this inner kingdom, we've discussed the different roles and the different relationships of the mind and the soul and the body. And our whole purpose was to try and show and portray how this powerful kingdom within us was perfected in Karbala. Perfected through the movement of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, through the companions of the Imam, through the family of the Imam. Now we want to try and weave the threads together to see the sacrifice and the courage and the faith of two young men who shows us, brothers and sisters, the young brothers now, I'm talking to the young brothers, the 9-year-olds, the 10-year-olds, the 11-year-olds, the 12-year-olds. The musibah that we're going to mention tonight aren't for the older men. The musibah that we're going to mention tonight are for the boys that showed us that even as an 11 and a 12 and a 13-year-old, I can have charge of this inner kingdom. I have power over this inner kingdom. And it's the story of Aun and Mohamed, alayhim as-salam, the sons, the brave sons of Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam. In Karbala, they were the embodiments of the harmonious inner kingdom. They stood as examples of how the soul, the mind, the body, the emotion and the heart work together. And how they fortified this inner kingdom through the power of faith and the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The two young sons of Sayyidah Zainab, Aun alayhi salam was 13 years old and Muhammad was 11. They showed and they displayed profound understanding of their roles and the divine plan that unfolded in Karbala. Even though they were young, their minds, the Prime Minister of the inner kingdom, was imbued with wisdom and clarity. They learned from the best. Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam, the daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, the daughter of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, they were the epitome of faith. They were the epitome of perfection, of patience, and they guided these young men. This goes to show, brothers and sisters, the importance of being important, great role models for your children, to empower your children. So they instilled with them virtues of selflessness, of courage, of bravery, of strength. So when the day of Ashura came, and the sun rose over Karbala, Aun and Muhammad were ready to make the sacrifice. They were ready to say, Ya Aba Abdullah, we're ready for you. They sought permission from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Of course, the Imam was hesitant. My nephews, this is a tough decision to make. To allow my nephews to go into the battlefield. Brothers, imagine right now looking at your 11, 10, 12 or 13-year-old son and allowing him to go to his death. How hard of a decision would it be? Now, if it's your son and if it's for a great cause, okay, but for your nephew, Allahu Akbar. Abu Abdullah was faced with real tough trials. Besides all of the shahada of his companion and his family, the decision to allow his sons, the sons of his brother, of his sister, to embark on this journey, was a tough decision to make for a general and for a leader like Abu Abdullah. So the Imam hesitated, but Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam persisted. Brother, please allow my sons to be a sacrifice for you. They came to be a sacrifice for you. Imagine, Allahu Akbar. You know, you bring your child on their wedding day, you dress them, you put them in a nice suit to get married, and you're proud of them, and you're fixing their tie, you're fixing their suit. Sayyidah Zainab is fixing the armor of her children. But the armor doesn't fit on her children. They're 11 and 13. How is the armor going to fit? It wasn't designed for a child. So she puts them in the armor. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Imam Hussein alayhi salam bids them their last farewell. He holds them, he kisses them. My sons, my nephews, take care of yourself. You are about to meet your grandfather, Rasulullah. And these young men move towards the battlefield. Of course, these young men know what they're going for, but they approach this battle with a smile on their face. They approach the enemy ready. Let us take our souls and our hearts to Karbala, my brothers and sisters. In the shadow of the Karbala sun, in the shadow of the Karbala sun, two hearts beat as one. Aun and Muhammad, Sayyidah Zainab's sons. Their journey of sacrifice has just begun. Cloaked in bravery, aged just 13 and 11, under the watchful eyes of heaven, they stepped onto a battlefield so harsh and mean. Their spirits so bright, their conscience is clean. Bismillah, they cried, their voices so clear. In the face of death, they showed no fear. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. With every stroke, with every spear, they fought for Islam and held it dear. A call to prayer code. The time was near, a final farewell to their uncle. On the sands of Karbala, they shed no tear. Labbayk ya Hussein, Labbayk ya Hussein, was all one could hear. Allahu Akbar. They embraced, then embraced by the harsh unyielding ground, surrounded by the enemies, two radiant souls in heaven were found, young in age to this world unbound. In the saga of faith, their names resound. In Zainab's heart, a mother's pain. Yet she stood dignified and endured the strain, for her sons didn't fall in Karbala's plain in vain. In the garden of martyrs they eternally remain. Aoun and Mohamed in history's grand frame, you embodied sacrifice in Allah's name. Your courage and faith forever we acclaim. In the depths of our hearts, your memory aflame. Allahu Akbar. One last journey, brothers and sisters. You know this journey. You know where we're going. In the heart of Karbala, where echoes still resound, an ocean of tears, where sorrow is found. You've all been to Karbala. You know when you go to Karbala, the sorrow that you experience, There stood a man by the trials surround. Imam al-Hussein to his purpose was bound, cloaked in courage, in faith which was so profound. Against the tide of tyranny, he stood his ground. With Allah's love, his heart was crowned. Allahu Akbar. In his stand for justice, his legacies would. To the whispering wind, he made his plea. Under the burnt sea in the sky for all to see. What was the plea, Fear not death when its truth you seek. To preserve Islam, let your voice speak. Then as the sun sets, casting long shadows, the time came for goodbye, the last of the sorrows. Between who, What was the last goodbye? Between a brother and sister, amidst the chaos, a moment etched in time that the heart borrows. Zainab, he cried, with his voice a gentle breeze. Stay strong, my sister, let your heart find ease. In the face of adversity, let your faith not cease. You're going to face a tough time, Zainab, For Allah's plan is perfect. In his plan find peace. As she looked into her brother's eyes, so clear in her heart, she held him near. She replied, Hussein, my brother, your path of truth over fear will forever we revere. In the heart of Karbala, under the burning sand, lies the story of sacrifice, a story so grand, a tale of a man who took a stand. Imam Hussein, his message forever will stand. In the echoes of time, his legacy rings. In the heart of every believer, his love will cling. through the chapters of history, his tale sings. Imam al-Hussein, the beacon to humanity, the beacon to which humanity will always cling. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. السلام عليك سيدي يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك سيدي وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. السلام على الحسين. All together with broken hearts, with your tears flowing. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخيه أبي الفضل العباس وعلى العقيلة زينب. سيدي يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل بيت محمد بأي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.